Mythbusters, a Dvar Torah for Parashat Toldot. Quite often, I find myself in quite a conundrum while sitting down to write my weekly Dvar Torah. On the one hand, I tend to be a more traditionalist. I look for answers to my question in the traditional commentators. I often use my father's tunes when I pray. I like to believe that I walk in the footsteps of my forefathers. On the other hand, I feel almost childlike happiness upon discovering that a deeply ingrained understanding of the Pesukim, such as the one we'll learn today, isn't the way most commentators explained it. The commentary I'm referring to this week is how Rashi explains why Yitzchak doesn't leave Eretz Canaan as opposed to Avraham and Yaakov, who did. The two places this question can rise are when Avraham tells his slave to bring back a bride for Yitzchak from his birthplace without sending Yitzchak abroad, as opposed to Yaakov, who strikes out on his own, or when famine afflicts the land during Yitzchak's life, and as opposed to Avraham, who goes to Egypt, Yitzchak is commanded to stay. According to Rashi, from the moment Yitzchak was offered on the altar, he will forever stay in Olah offering, thus becoming holy and destined to stay in the Holy Land. As Rashi's commentaries tend to do, this became the only answer I was aware of, and I'm not alone. This was the only answer I got from everyone I asked. That's why what I'm about to write now came as a bit of a surprise. The way I understand Rashbam, Hashem is only helping Yitzchak figure out how he can be the best Yitzchak possible. What he actually says is that the Pasuk that states that this was an additional famine to the one during Avraham's life is trying to say that Yitzchak was going to Egypt because that's where Avraham went. He then says that Hashem tells him to stay in Eretz Canaan because Avraham was sent to Eretz Canaan. In other words, Yitzchak was trying to figure out which of two of Avraham's actions was more essential to Avraham's being, leaving during a famine or coming to Israel. The reason this is important, as seen in other Yitzchak stories, is that Yitzchak sees walking in Avraham's footsteps as his life mission. Hashem is just pointing out that staying in Eretz Canaan is a more fundamentally Avraham feature than leaving. Rabbi Avraham ben Rambam believes that this isn't about not going to Egypt or staying in Eretz Canaan. It's all about staying specifically in Gerar and Eretz Plishtim. The reason he thinks staying in Gerar is so important is that Hashem knows that Eretz Plishtim is going to be one of the last areas of Canaan to be conquered by Yitzchak's descendants, and Hashem wants him to stay there for a while to pave the way and make it easier for them. Maaseh Avot, Siman Labanim. Ralbag says Hashem is trying to delay the fulfillment of Avraham's prophecy that his children will be enslaved in Egypt. Avraham went to Egypt before the prophecy. Yaakov heads in the other direction, at least until famine during Yosef's reign in Egypt. This commandment is only relevant to Yitzchak. I have found other commentaries that explain the commandment differently, like Shadal, who says that Hashem wanted to prove he can provide during a famine, or Kliakar, who says Hashem wanted to make sure he can receive prophecies, something impossible out of Israel. But neither explains what makes Yitzchak different from the other Avot. Neither does Rabbi Chaim ben Attar, who says Yitzchak never intended to go all the way to Egypt, and therefore the commandment was meant only to give him a chance to fulfill a free commandment. But I really liked it, so I chose to mention them anyways. The bottom line is that questions are so much more enjoyable than statements. So many interesting and different opinions covering so many different and delightful ideas would have been overlooked if I had stuck to the only answer I knew. Isn't this way so much more fun? If you had fun too, you might want to subscribe or maybe buy my book. There's a link below. I am Jovi Holtz, one who loves questions and Tanakh.